Well, welcome to another episode of the Fun and Mentals of Real Estate. I kind of fear that we might be a little bit mental today, but I'm sure that Glenn will find some kind of fun in it. I don't know. All right. So, big question of the day today is, once you have a contract on a home, an accepted contract with a seller, and you're so excited, can you still lose the home? Is there a chance you could lose it? That's what we're all about today, is the pitfalls in between accept a contract and closing day, and what do we need to do to make sure you get there, right, without going through these pitfalls, because they do exist. So I'm your host today, Angela Dillmon, here with Keller Realty Chesterfield, and this is my wealth building partner,
Glen Calvin, Guild Mortgage.
And this is our expert buyer's agent, Josh Gulledge, joining us again today for our buyer's series.
Yep.
And we're here to help you build wealth,
live your dream lifestyle,
leave some legacies that matter.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I guess the fun would be getting to closing date.
Yes, fun is getting to closing.
You know what else? I used to say this: nothing worthwhile comes easy. Think about that in your life.
Absolutely true.
Something that's really worth it. And you like to use that wedding analogy.
I do.
Which is awesome. A wedding is it's a party, it's moving, you're with all your family, but getting there is stressful.
It's a lot of work.
It's work and it's stressful,
and moving is one of the top 5 stressors in life.
Right.
And there are a lot of pitfalls in between the accepted contract and closing. And so, number one, there's at least 6 contingencies that you have. You might have more. But a contingency is just like, hey, Mr. Seller, I want to buy your home, but I need to do this first. I need to get a loan first. I need to check the title first. I need to have the house inspected first, right? And so I need to get insurance.
I always tell buyers sometimes that it's like if they have a hard time wrapping their head around contingencies, I always tell them it's like a strings attached. If I said, hey, John, here's $20, and you'd say, well, why am I, for what? Or, what's the string attached to the $20? Like, oh, well, I'll give you this $20, but I need to do this, or you need to do this, and you need to do this. So I always just say strings attached kind of a deal. So and not again, in a negative way.
Another reason why a listing agent wants a good, competent agent that they're familiar with on the other end, because there are so many pitfalls that this does not get to closing, right?
Yep.
And so let's just talk about the very first one, and it's just earnest money. Yep. Just getting your earnest money in on time. And so earnest money, what do we do with the earnest money at closing, Glenn? Is it
so it gets credit too? So I think of the interest, it's a deposit. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. So many people are confused. I need $35,000 at closing, but I got to give them $5 at the contract in earnest. Glenn, that means I need $40,000? No. It means you need 30 because you needed 35. We put 5 on deposit at the title company.
Gets credit at closing.
And if something doesn't happen, it doesn't work out, that money's coming back to you.
Yeah, usually if you avoid the pitfall of missing some of these contingent dates, right? And this is why we have a contract to close specialist.
So it's probably the easiest. It's probably the easiest of all our conditions.
Yeah,
but the money.
It has to be done on time.
Right.
And you have to have a team sometimes that stays on you to get it in. It's usually 3 days.
5 days is standard.
5 days now.
So 5,
right? And sometimes you can write in a little longer, but it's whatever.
Is there a law that says I have to put so much money down in earnest?
No,
who
you
comes
can buy
up with
a house
that number?
without earnest money. It's just that the seller wants to know you're not just going to walk away. Right? Yeah. That's what it's about. So let's not get too ahead of, but if you don't get that in on time, then you're out of contract, right? You're out of contract. Yeah. The seller can cancel your contract, right? Now, the seller doesn't have very many options here, but that's one of them that they do, right? Okay, so the next...
And we have there's been situations before where seller will take, an offer and we negotiated on it really well. And this just happened a few months ago. After we were under contract, the next day, one of the other offers submitted an offer like $20,000 higher than us.
Wow.
So hoping. They were hoping and praying. And I've done the same thing on the reverse side is you want to put as much pressure on that contract through inspections and stuff. And
so they take a backup offer.
They asked like if you deposited all your stuff, and I knew, and I asked why, and I found out like they were basically waiting for us to stumble. They wanted to kick us out. They didn't want to hold the deal together.
And sellers don't have many options. This is just pretty much the only one they have. Okay, so now, next thing, a lot of things are going to happen all at one time here in these contingencies. So we're going to get this contract if we have a good contractor close specialist that's on the agent's team. This happens very quickly.
Yeah, great one.
Right? It goes straight to the title company. It goes straight to the lender.
I always think too,
right?
Once that contract is accepted, think of a stopwatch and you're clicking because you've got so many days that you have to have the loan committed. Right. And even though your loan's been approved, you still have to get the appraisal underwritten and approved.
Right.
So there's still stuff to do. And then you can't make up those dates that you procrastinate in the beginning at the end. So it's really important to stay on it.
That's right. So one of the first things we talked about was the lender itself. So staying with the lender that you've already chosen. This is why it's hard to do. It's good to do your groundwork ahead of time.
Right.
Get fully underwritten with someone so they can run with it.
Now we can lock the interest rate in.
Can lock it in.
The interest rate going up higher. We can order the appraisal. Sometimes we'll get appraisal waiver. We don't need. We're going to go ahead and order the title work to make sure that you're getting clear title.
Yeah.
And we're going
to. That's done separately. We do it,
right.
But lenders, if you've not chosen a lender and you start looking around and start comparing lenders at that point, now you have eaten up your loan commitment time, which typically around here is about 21 days, about 3 weeks. If you're completely underwritten, it might get shortened to 2 weeks.
Right. And there's some legal documents that we have to send you that you have to sign before we can move forward. We have to send you the loan estimate. We have to send you a whole bunch of disclosures. So I'm going to spend a lot of time going over those with you, and we can sign them electronically. But that has to get done, or we can't go from step A to step B. And on an FHA loan, we can't even order the appraisal until you've signed the disclosures and we've got the case number.
So one of the pitfalls when we're talking about lenders and eating up your loan commitment date is if you go and we're talking about losing a contract, losing the house, you can't say, oh, I would rather use this lender because it's a better rate, but I don't have enough time. Hey, Mr. Seller, will you extend me more time? Because if they want to kick you out of the contract, they'll say no.
They'll say no, and that's
the end
of that.
You have, especially depending on your financial situation, you either got to take a lot of risks or, you have to say, well, I have to back out of the deal. So that's why it's so important. Again, we're sending everything out on our end because we have an amazing contract to close facilitator, but you really have to make decisions rather quickly, which we'd hope you'd make beforehand, because if we're talking about getting out of a contract, that could be a huge one.
It can be huge, and you have an obligation as a buyer to do your due diligence. Okay, so in the state of Missouri, you must act in good faith. So you can't just procrastinate and not do things and then go, oh, sorry, I didn't get my loan commitment on time. No, I'm going to keep your earnest money then.
And I think that the interest rates are important too, but they're not the most important thing. Right. What does it matter if you got the lowest interest rate if the money's not there on closing day?
That's right. So we got that. So that's a big pitfall.
Right.
Not getting things ordered quickly and on time. Some lenders can procrastinate ordering the appraisal until you get through your building inspection. Well, if you do that, now I've got less time, and a lot of lenders do that. That's just a bad pitfall to get into, because now we don't have the appraisal back, we don't have loan commitment on time. Now we got to go to the seller and hope and pray they're going to extend us, and not want to go to a backup buyer that they took in that scenario.
Well, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves with lenders, especially, I know Glenn always orders the appraisal right away, so this is lenders that we don't use very regularly, is they say this, oh, we'll work out the appraisal when we're done with inspections. But these lenders don't understand, if it's 7 days to even do inspections, if we have problems, we have 10 days to negotiate it.
That's a long time.
And then if it's, hey, we've now negotiated repairs, it takes time to get the repairs done. I mean, and now we're trying to start the loan.
Yeah, in what world are we getting a loan?
You guys are so good at it, because that's a two-way street. Because we get the call from the agent saying, hey, hold off on that appraisal. I'm like, are you sure?
No.
Because if we're going to do that, then you need to change these dates now.
Yeah. That's right. And buyers may say that. It's like, hey, I don't want to pay for the appraisal, but it takes time to order. By the time you order it and the appraiser gets out there, we've had that inspection. Right. You already know. But we have to push that timeline. So very important. All right. Another thing we have is title, right? You got to have a good title company. Our contractor close specialist, her name is Linda. She's awesome. Big shout out to her. Gets it over to that title company right away, and they have to start processing.
Right. So and we're going to go too deep. But the title company is going to research that property from the beginning, from whenever the first person owned it, making sure it was passed on from person to person. They're going to research and make sure that there's nobody's going to come back on any liens for any improvements that went into the property. They're also going to research that seller and make sure there aren't any judgments or default judgments, anything like that against the seller.
Against them.
Oh, that's
There's
a great one.
All kinds of things, that can happen.
Yes.
There can be an old loan that wasn't paid off when they bought the house, and now we've got to do that. And you can lose a house over title that's not good.
But you're protected by the contract, so if the title isn't good.
But you only have 25 days here in our standard contracts to do that. And so if your agent's not paying attention to what's on that title work, and then requesting that be fixed, then wow, you could end up with a house that has some kind of weird title thing going on, or you could end up at closing and not be able to close because there's still a title thing hanging out there. So
it happens to the buyers too, because we had one a few years ago where they got title back and they said that there was like a $10,000 judgment on the buyer.
That's true.
Of course, that was a very common name. It was a John Smith.
Right.
Usually it's
like, okay, I'm like, we need to confirm that this is them, but it wasn't just a simple name affidavit. Like that one actually took a little bit longer. They at first said, nope, it's definitely him. And I'm like, well, my buyer's saying it's 100% not him. So I'm like, let's do a little more research.
Yes.
But yeah, finding that stuff out last minute is not good.
Tell me to me, the big one is the building inspection, because I know that's an expense. And as a buyer, I just got to have in my mind that I've got to pay for this building inspection, whether it goes through or not. That's probably the one thing, and that I don't get refunded the building inspection.
You don't. You have to pay for that. If the appraiser's been out, you have to pay for that. So there are things that you do need to commit to. You do get your earnest money back if there's something on the inspection that you can't work out with the seller, or you decide that, hey, there's too much stuff in this house, you can walk away at that point.
The title or
but only during your inspection period. And if you're not in those 7 days, 10 days is standard. Sometimes they get shortened when you're negotiating and you're, up against other people, and that's 5 days or 7. Only during that period. If you miss that period, you've bought the house as is. Period. End of conversation. Right? So I've had agents just blow past and send me an inspection on the 12th day, and I'm like, your inspection period was up 2 days ago. And they're like, well, I'm like, there ain't no well. Seller's like, I'm not fixing anything. You had 10 days, you're done. So that's a big pitfall. We have to really watch those dates. We have one right now. When you're reviewing HOA docs, once you get them, you only get 5 days.
And that's really tough for the lender right now. That's a big thing.
Working days this is just 5 calendar days. I don't care if it's Christmas. It doesn't matter. So these dates this is how you lose houses. Go past this. So
we've got so far we have the title, loan, appraisal, building inspection.
Right. Survey.
So
you can also, survey, you have 25 days for that. We usually like to get the title work in because surveyors use the title work.
Right.
So you can have spot or boundary surveys. A boundary actually does the 4 corners, all the easements, locates fences, driveways, retaining walls, anything on that property. That boundary survey is going to locate. And if there's an issue, somebody's fence is on your property or your retaining wall in the house you're buying on the other guy's property, then there's remedies for that. We can go get an easement from a neighbor or something. But we've had them where, if you miss that deadline to make that request, then you bought it with the driveway on the neighbor's property, right? Or the outbuilding on the neighbor's property.
Does the real estate contract make concessions for my homeowner's insurance?
Yes, it does. Okay, it does have a contingency, and that's...
So that's when you need to get something right away.
Short.
Right.
It's a short time.
And that's been a culture shock for people that insurance, where it used to be $1,200, $1,500, now it's $2,000, $2,400. We've seen it.
So what's the time limit for insurance these days? It's only 10 days, isn't it? It usually runs concurrent with the building inspection. And so either you can get insurance at a number that makes sense and works in your budget and that payment that Glen's estimated for you, or it doesn't. Right. And if it doesn't, you can back out of the contract over that, or find out that it's in a floodplain. Right? If you find it's in a floodplain, it was not disclosed it's in a floodplain, and now you got double the insurance, because flood is as much as homeowners.
And the lender is going to check on that floodplain on every single transaction.
Lender's going to do that for you. You got to have a good lender.
And you know what this is kind of a downer, but they're all always trying to find the fun. You're really trying to protect me. You're really trying to protect that buyer to make sure that when you buy this house, all this is all nothing that you have to worry about. So the day of closing.
I can tell you, it is funny that there are some things that buyers get so worked up over, and I'm not a stressed out person. I don't get stressed out easily. I could care less if your couch fits in the living room. I'm concerned about your inspection date, and it's like 5 o'clock on the day of inspection. And I'm like, haven't heard from them, and I'm like calling a text, and like, this is a humongous deadline. And I'm like, where are you guys? Like, so it's funny just what buyers will put their concerns on, and other stuff that is a huge concern, and they're like to the point where they're stressing me out. It's bad. And it's like 9 o'clock the night of. Like, are we moving forward on this?
And you can amend and change the contract, but it's not a guarantee, right?
It's not going to sell it. The other side has to agree. Right. So I had one recently on title work where we had a long closing, and there was some stuff on the title that came up that was old, that a lien had not been paid off before. There was a title exchange, a quick claim, and they didn't say whether the person giving it to the next person was married or not, because in Missouri you have marital interest. Very complicated stuff. And there was like, how are we going to solve that? Is that person alive? No, they're not. Who knew them? So there was a lot of things we had to do. And guess what? That buyer missed that title deadline. I had the listing. I had the seller. I'm like, oh, by the way, if we can't solve this, you're still buying this property no matter what. Because guess what? You missed your title deadline. You didn't ask me to fix anything. I will do my best to try to fix it. But if I can't, you bought it. And that guy was like, uh-oh. Because that agent was not paying attention. All right. So now, not only did they didn't lose the house here, but they could have bought a big problem. Yeah. Right. So there's losing the house, and then there's ending up with a house that has a big issue on it. So you really need a good team and watch this.
It is. And to me, I'm always looking for the fun is that I'm going to help you. You don't have to do this on your own.
Yeah.
You've got a team behind you. You've got somebody that can answer your questions, that can make sure you're meeting these deadlines, that can address the problems when they come up. I've had deals with the FHA loans where the appraisal comes in a little bit lower and the seller drops his price.
And we have to negotiate that. So there are a lot of things to do in between contract and closing to get you there safely, right? And to not get your pocket picked or you lose the house.
Right.
So
just because a problem comes up doesn't always mean it's the end of the world. It usually can be worked through and it can be solved.
Yeah.
Luckily, a lot of these things, you guys as buyers, they hardly even know what's going on behind the scenes.
It looks super easy.
We have made it so easy with our contract to close and our systems, and it's like, hey, this is like the only 3 things you need to do, and I am the quarterback taking the rest of it to closing for you.
You're like the wedding coordinator.
Yeah. You should see. Yeah, you should see how
Josh,
hard
the wedding coordinator.
Our wedding coordinator works. But our contractor close gal, she has to track down paid receipts and lien waivers for anything in the last 12 months. And some sellers are like, oh yeah, I forgot I had that roof put on, or I forgot I had a furnace installed, and they can't find the guy. And it's up to us to go find him and make sure that you get that house.
Again, we really do make it really easy. And again, the only time you're really hearing during this process is if you're not paying attention to deadlines, we're like needing you, or there is an issue that we need to talk through. But
so very important. There are a lot of pitfalls that happen. You can lose the house or end up with a big problem and have to close on the house. We don't want to see you do that. So hopefully this just gives you some information to realize you need to pick a good agent with a big team, a good team is what I meant to say, a good team of people who can help you get there smoothly, easily, with the least amount of hassle. Because this is stressful. This is a mental day. Didn't have a lot of fun, but
we had plenty of fun.
We can go to closing.
We got to think of Josh as a wedding coordinator.
That's right. We're gonna get to the wedding. The wedding day's coming. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Hit us, subscribe, share. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next week.
See you.